Welcome to the PSA playbook. I want them because it's like Lanzera and Mizuno that do.
Mizuno's good.
So good.
Great riding shoes.
So good, so good.
Deep breath on 3, 2, 3.
Peace and serenity. You ready? Let's go, gang, innit? Welcome to the PSA Playbook, the podcast where we explore the world of youth sports, from the nuances of player development and coaching strategies to parenting perspectives and the psychology of performance. This is your weekly guide to navigating the youth sports landscape and raising confident, capable young athletes on and off the field. Today's guest, Michael Retta. Welcome, brother.
Hello.
Happy to be here. Thanks
Let's
for having me on the
go.
pod.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us an intro to your background.
So I'm born in Annandale, Virginia. I don't know if I should look at the camera or look at you.
Either one.
Born in Northern Virginia. 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. All grew up playing tennis. Ethiopian by background. Both my parents are Ethiopian immigrants, first generation. And went to Bishop O'Connell High School. Ended up graduating from Falls Church to allow me to go play tennis. Earlier get let out of the schedule. Played collegiate tennis at Vanderbilt. Have coached tennis in this area internationally, professionally, at the high school level. And now I'm moving into management. So, kind of a full circle moment.
Done it all.
We're just getting started.
How do you, for the sport of tennis, it seems like it's changed so much over the years. Now it's so popular. The Netflix show Breakpoint has made it very much in the mainstream now. How do you think it's changed now to when maybe you were growing up?
I think the social component of tennis has really, really helped change the landscape. I think also just going to tennis events or playing tennis has kind of become cool again, and you've seen that in terms of a participation standpoint. Tennis hasn't had this many players on a national level in the U.S. since the late 1970s, which is crazy. We're not talking about a percentage of the U.S. We're talking about actual players. So I think it's up. I couldn't give you by the tens of millions. But I think COVID was a huge, proponent. That's been something that you've kind of springboarded and seen the participation grow because of it, because it was very, it was something that people could do that was outside again in the peak of COVID, that was socially distant.
It's one of those things. Tennis, I feel like, similar to golf, obviously not to the same extent, but there's limited accessibility. I feel like people who played tennis, it was more seen as a money sport, I guess.
Correct.
Even though it's there's local, there's free access to these tennis courts and things, but to be able to play, especially at those higher levels, it was one of those sports. Is that kind of changing now? Is it becoming more accessible, or is it still similar?
I think there's always going to be a significant startup cost that there is with tennis. Not to say that you can't just go out and buy more affordable rackets.
Yeah.
At any local Walmart or Target, you can go and find rackets at. But I think, there's other things that have kind of changed the landscape of where we are with the entry of pickleball, right? And you're seeing more and more tennis courts go away. But also, building tennis centers or racket sports facilities are extremely expensive. And, taking in this area, for instance, people are building up, they're not building out.
Right.
And so you're seeing more and more tennis centers or racket sports facilities go away. So it'll be interesting and very telling to see what happens in the next 10 years, I guess, even on the national level for tennis.
Did you always play tennis when you were growing up? Was that your only sport, or did you kind of do a mixture of individual and team, or different sports, or just tennis?
I played tennis and basketball. Those were my main sports. Played a little bit of football. But competitively were something where I'd actually talk about outside of my 7th grade CYO Christmas tournament. I think that tennis is what I would say that was my claim.
Did you find it hard the differences? Because I feel soccer, basketball, football are very easy to get anyone to play, very easy to do pickup. So did you find when you went to tennis practice compared to basketball, it was a different environment of people? Or was it less people at tennis, way more at basketball, but the levels were different. Like, how did you kind of compare them?
I think this is from a playing standpoint.
Yeah, like when you were younger, like growing up and stuff. Because I feel like in soccer, like you can do it anywhere. And like when I played at high school and in the academy, and it was completely different. But anyone could literally play it. And I've never played tennis or anything like that. So I just want to see your point of view of like comparing the team to individual, and also like Ricky said, growing up, tennis is like more like a high end, and I feel like that's based on skill, that's based on money. Growing up,
Correct,
is what I mean. So I just want to see like your point of view when you were growing up, kind of like the difference, like populations, environments, all that stuff.
I think I started playing basketball because my friends were playing basketball.
Right.
And I think the idea of, even like any type of youth sport, it's a great way at the foundation level of just when you're starting to play sports. I think team sports are huge. But I think that I started playing tennis because I liked tennis and I enjoyed playing it. It was something that my brothers did and I looked up to them. But if I was an only child, maybe I would be saying, wow, I really wanted to play basketball or I wanted to play soccer because, my friends, Timmy and Jimmy are playing on the soccer team.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, wow, like I want to really, really feel included. But it's something that we could do together as opposed to something that would be separate.
So do you think it was hard to like really stick with tennis because you kind of watch all your friends go off and like you had to go play tennis, but because you really loved it that much? Do you think it was still a bit hard for you, like, as a kid? Like,
Yeah, I do. I didn't actually really start taking tennis seriously and commit to tennis. I think it was my sophomore year of high school in the spring going into that summer was when I'm like, okay, I got to do this. But
do you think that was because of your friends? Or, like, just the, like, social side of it?
no, it's because I knew that was the best sport I was going to be able to get me the chance to move forward with.
Yeah. Okay. What you excelled at?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't going to be a football player.
Right.
Those Ethiopian limitations.
Exactly.
How did your kind of playing journey, playing and becoming more serious in high school, playing at Vanderbilt, having that D1 experience, how has that kind of shaped your coaching philosophies as you made that transition to high school coaching and so on?
I think playing any collegiate sport teaches you, or I just think the idea of going to college is very important because it's the first time in your life where you wake up and you're making your own decisions. But you also, as an athlete, you have all these added responsibilities, right? You have early morning lifts, you've got academic accountability offices, right? You've got to go to study hall, you've got to go to team meetings. And I think like that level of discipline kind of from a foundation standpoint allowed me to go and be successful moving on. But it also was the first time that I had to really, really be part of a very serious competitive team.
Right.
Because tennis is individual up on that point. And I think the emotional lessons that I learned from working with other people, especially my year, we were the number one recruiting class in the country, but we had 6 freshmen coming on, and our team was a total of 10 people. 6 freshmen all at once at a pretty good competitive school where everyone obviously wants to play. Everyone thinks is pretty good, but learning to just also find your roles and see adding ways that you can be a part of a team, add value as opposed to, I'm not getting enough playing time. I think like those and just actually coming together is what has allowed me to really, really, and I still look back and try to use those moments to help develop and help my thought process.
Tennis is interesting because it's obviously individual, but it's like a tennis team, so you're competing against people within your team to get the higher placements. That's the way it works, even in like the collegiate teams?
Correct. Yeah, but it's a team sport, so you might have 3 people win matches, but you have 3 other people that lost, and you lost the doubles point, so you lose the match.
Right.
Individual rankings are important, but it's not it's cooler to win a team championship, I think, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, individual championships are great, and it's great being the best player, but you're there on a team. You're playing all year round. You're playing on a team, so that's my opinion.
So what are the things that you focus on as a tennis coach? Because as a tennis coach, different than any other sport, the other sports that are team-based, you're focusing on team chemistry, your team culture, and things like that. When you're a tennis coach, if you coach a high school or you coach a college, you're still coaching that team. But for you, who does like individual coaching as well, how do those kind of things differ a little bit? Because you're just really focusing on the individual athlete and what they need to work on and their psychology and their athleticism, their technical skills and stuff. How do you differentiate that?
I think coaching isn't so much about X's and O's. You could have the best coaches around you and the player won't excel to whatever the next level is. I think it's much more about teaching. Mm-hmm. I think you have to go and be able to teach the person. And I think me personally, I've seen coaches that are maybe not the best X's and O's coach, but they're very good at communicating. They're very good at building trust. They're very good at all these other things that aren't necessarily what you would distinguish as an incredible coach. But they know how to inspire people, how to get them excited. And whether they had a good day or a bad day, when they leave, they feel good about, what they worked through, whether it was good or bad. And I think just focusing on that and focusing on coaching the individual as opposed to trying to force your coaching philosophy and try to delegate, because everyone is different. Mm-hmm. And I think just try to focus about that and be more of a servant leader as opposed to making it about, hey, this is how you have to be. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy, but that is what has allowed me success.
Interesting.
Have you ever experienced in your coaching, I think tennis is very skill based, and there's differences obviously between that and other team sports, but have you ever experienced coaching a kid that you just know isn't a tennis kid? Do you know what I mean? You're coaching them for a while, whether it's individual, whether it's as a team, but you just know that kid's probably not going to do the best if they keep going on. So how do you kind of go about that? Obviously you want them to stay in the sport, but they're starting to build that gap between their teammates. So have you ever experienced that, and how have you dealt with that?
Well, I think when we think this is something that I learned through coaching, but I think when you're coaching players at whatever level it is, there's always going to be an end of the road, right? How even if you get to number one, that's as good as it gets. All playing tennis or playing sports, I don't think is about development, and I don't think it's about what level you get to. I think there's much more personal development things. You're coaching the kid to learn failure. You're coaching the person to work through problems. You're coaching them, to get into better shape physically so that they can perform better, which is much more about their wellness. You're teaching them routines. You're teaching them discipline. You're teaching them accountability. Hey, show up to practice and do your warm-up on time. Stretch after practice. Eat the right things. You want to be successful. And whether they win or lose, or whether they make it, to Vanderbilt or USC or whatever, that's a bonus. Everything that they've done moving up to that point is much more valuable, because at the end of the day, you're going to stop playing whatever sport that you play. But what I give you hopefully will go, this is my whole philosophy, is about developing your own playbook. And so if they've developed their own playbook, to me, that's much more valuable than, a kid that's not going to make it, or what we define as making it.
All right. We spoke about the last episode is as much as you're coaching the kids on the field, you're coaching the kids off the field too. Do you kind of see that in your coaching, that your mottos, philosophies, kind of messages are also translating to the person they are off the court?
100%. I there have been several evenings where I'm talking to players until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, because they're stressed out about X, about Y. This is kids either that are going to go on and play competitive collegiate tennis, or kids who are playing, 2 or 3 at a high school level on their doubles team. But if they're working through a problem, the person that's a little bit better or a lot better, doesn't trump who's going to be playing at the lower level. As long as they're working through a process, at the end of the day, you're a coach. And so, yeah, I see it a ton.
I think for for individual athletes, like if you have a bad day on the soccer field, on the basketball court or whatever, it affects like your team. I guess it's a similar thing when you're in a team setting, high school or collegiately. But a lot of times you were running tournaments in the area, and those tournaments, they're just individually based. It's individual for your ranking, it's individual for experience and things like that. I guess how would you characterize the differences between, I guess, the psychological component of an individual athlete and a team sport athlete? Because I feel it's so much more pressure.
Yeah, like getting yourself out of like a rut.
It's just you.
Are you talking
teammates to rely on? You don't have like if a midfielder gives the ball away, a defender can recover for.
Like,
As an individual, you win and you make mistakes, and it's just you.
Yeah, like in the game of like soccer, like you have people like basically bailing you out when you make a mistake.
Yeah.
But like in tennis, in any kind of individual sport, you can't look around and be like, okay, they've got my back. Like it's you versus you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, when I was playing, it was hard because I had like anxiety on the field, but I could look to my teammates and I could kind of like get myself back to it. But like, who do you look to on a tennis court? You know what I mean? Like even if you're playing like in twos, but like how do you kind of?
I think tennis is extremely tough at the youth level because you can look to your parents, but then a lot of times you want your parents to be watching your matches. This goes hand in hand about my argument about how I think tennis is a tougher sport because you have to win the last point. It's the only sport that you have to do it. You have to be physically fit to compete, and you don't have a coach out there. If you mess up, it's on you. And if you mess up for a couple of minutes, you lose the first set, then you get broken in the first game. Like, what the heck is going on? I'm falling apart. And you have to go and problem solve. And you've got to go and change your strategy, right? Like, if somebody's going to come up and, push you once, twice, are you going to go and get pushed for the third time? Or are you going to say, hey, let me do something different. Let me move over here.
Yeah.
And I think just like going and the quicker that you learn that at the tennis court, especially like kids, you could see kids who are talented, but kids that can solve problems and change things at a very, very quick level, you're like, wow, this kid's going to be really, really, really good because they figure it out, and then you could have everyone has different strokes, everyone has different ways to play, but from a mental standpoint, I mean, it's tough out there, and it's about having a good routine at the end of the day. I always teach kids, if you lose a point, hold your racket in your less dominant hand, but hold it with the racket pointing up because holding it down is a negative it's a signal to your brain, right? So you turn around, touch the fence with your right hand, and don't walk up to the line until you're ready to play the next point. But little things like that, it's like, okay, if you lose a point, instead of dwelling, oh, I just missed this backhand into the net, you're saying, oh, wow, let me go back to my routine. Then you're so focused on that, it's almost like you're brainwashing yourself.
Right.
And I think just having those little habits and like just adding things to your playbook or on the changeover, maybe you need to have a notebook. Maybe you have to put your head over your a towel over your head, and just little things like that help when you feel like you're having your tick. That kind of brings you back down to base.
I think that's so important, like for like youth, like young kids to play individual sports, like you've just mentioned, that have those kind of like routines, those ticks, to teach them like off the court as well. Because I feel like in soccer, like I didn't learn any of that. Like I had to try and figure it out myself. Like no one knew because there's 20 odd people on the team. Whereas on tennis, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Like you're very zoned in, you're very highlighted, and I feel like you can tell straight away if a tennis player is in their own head compared to a person who's in a team of 11, a team of like, you know what I mean? So how do you think that like the importance of like young kids playing individual sports like that, maybe in a bit of a deeper level, to learn things like that for their lives, like past the sport?
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is like how do people play a sport like tennis where it's individual based as opposed to where there's team sports where you can rely on other people? Like how do you do it?
Like...
Well, I guess that first of all, would you recommend that every kid growing up plays an individual sport, not necessarily tennis?
Oh, I encourage team sports and I encourage soccer first, always.
But you would say if you were to paint the development pathway for a kid at young ages, Do you think there's a significant value in them doing both?
Oh, I mean, yeah, if they like it. I think kids should play whatever. I'm very, very big on having kids play whatever sport they have. I like soccer because it teaches you how to be part of a team.
Mhm.
You're learning footwork. You're learning plays. You have to have your gear. You understand responsibility. I got to wear the right shoes. There's enough
Right.
details on that aspect, and the benefits of that, like just learning how to do that, and just to be active
Yeah.
and to compete. Because if you're a little kid, if you play tennis, you get discouraged. You lost 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. I mean, I've lost so much in my time. I've done a lot of it, trust me. But, when you have friends that you can go and rely on, like whether it's good or bad outcome, I think that's huge. And that allows you to just like competition. Because once you taste winning, it's like, wow, this is what it feels like. And I think that's what sparks kids' interest. And like the idea, like the ability to do it together is exciting, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like we did this. I mean, I still think about our first championship that we won in men's collegiate soccer. Shout out to District Sports. But that's exciting. It's something, and I don't think that's just at the youth level. I think that goes across, even beginner sports for whatever you're learning.
Do you think there's like an age, like, okay, so you're saying for super young athletes, they need to start with a team sport. Do you think there's an age where you would say like is a sweet spot to start individual sports as well as a team sport?
I think I encourage to start playing as early as you can, just to learn the mechanics and have fun and understand the ball. But it's also like the motor skills, the hand-eye coordination, right? The focus. And tennis is super technical. For an example, from an individual sport, it's super technical. So sometimes it can get very discouraging on a kid. So I mean, I would say around 5, 6, if you just want to learn how to play, just go out there and hit balls.
Some movements and stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be serious. It could just be, very, very basic.
PSA sports after school club.
When do you think is the age where players need to take it more seriously? If they want to be collegiate tennis players, they want to play at the next level. When is
High school.
That's when you need to lock in. Choose
High school,
sport.
sophomore year. I mean, I got lucky. Very, very lucky. But I also took a gap year between college and high school that allowed me and afforded me to, it really changed the landscape of what my offers were from a collegiate standpoint. I mean, by light years.
Yeah.
But I'd say by high school you have to be, you don't have to just play that sport, but you need to be training 4 or 5 times a week.
You don't think that you need to focus on the one sport? You think you can still be able to play team sports and things and to be a collegiate tennis player?
Yeah, you got. Yeah, I mean, by high school you got to be all in on tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because I do think with other sports like football you could do track and field, right? Basketball you could still play football.
Right.
Soccer, you can play basketball.
Yeah.
What does it look like in terms of the recruitment process for a tennis player? Like for other sports, it kind of changes where you're being recruited in tournaments. You can send in film and stuff like that. What does tennis recruitment look like?
If you're a blue chip 5-star, 4-star recruit, you'll have pretty solid looks from D1 programs. If you're in high school, you need to be getting into these national level tournaments. There's essentially similar to 4 Grand Slams. There's 4 junior national tournaments that are big: Winters, Clay Courts, Kalamazoo, and Springs or Easter Bowl, whatever you call it. But if you play those tournaments, you have a very good shot at playing at a very high Division I level. July 1st, I think, is the date that coaches can contact you, which is usually around clay courts. And so coaches they'll line up, they'll go to certain tournaments that are there regionally or whatever, and you email coaches. You get out there and you're selling yourself. You're like, hey, I'm going to be at this tournament. Just want to let you know if you're in the area, like if you're interested in playing with me. Like, I used to be like, hey, I'm going to be at this tournament, but also these guys are going to be here also. That just because I was like, oh, like if they're going to come watch them, maybe they'll see me.
You mentioned other players.
Oh, 100%. Whatever it took to get a look.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it worked.
Do you have any advice for like parents that like their kids are coming to them and be like, I want to be like all in for tennis? Do you have any advice for like parents to start building them up a bit more? Because obviously we spoke about it a lot, where it's not just the kid. Like we always sometimes forget, like it's not just the kid that's involved in it, it's the parents as well. You got to convince, or you've got to help guide them. Like some of our parents have not a Scooby about soccer, but their kid's 100% in, and they want to do everything they can. So do you have any like advice for like their kids up and coming in tennis?
Let the coaches coach. That's the best advice I could give you. And it's, I mean, parents are coaching their kids all day long. The last thing is when you find a kid who's excited about something where it actually involves failure, for you to also be the voice from that. Yeah. And I think also that isn't emphasized enough is you're coaching parents just as much as you're coaching kids. Mm-hmm. I'm actually talking to parents more late at night about the phone about, Bella's forehand versus, the actual kid. Yeah. You're like, how are we going to get this right? I'm like, well, keep practicing. Keep practicing. Yeah.
That's why we put time for it. See, I tell my parents, don't text me after 8 o'clock. You will not get a response. We have a 24-hour rule after games and stuff like that, because I feel like we spoke about that a lot. Is that the parents are just constantly, but I feel like it's because they care, like they want to know more, yeah. But I don't think they have that guidance of how to go about it. And I didn't know if like that parent environment was different in tennis. It sounds not different at all.
It's way worse.
Yeah.
It is way worse. I mean, I've seen you got parents, on the when I'm coaching lessons, most of the time I have parents picking up balls the entire time. Yeah. And doing this, videotaping like this, which is good. Like, look, I'm all for that. But when it isn't going on the timeline that they expected, where they're not trusting the process, and they're getting frustrated, I think sometimes they lose themselves because they care so much that they're not looking at their student or their child and saying, "Wow, like what are they going through?"
Yeah, we always tell our parents, like, what I always say is, like, you're their biggest cheerleader. Like, no matter what happens, they're not going to look at the coach at the end of the game. They're looking at the parent. And if the parent's like, we didn't do so well, the kid's going to immediately, like, drop. But if the parent's like, what do you tell them?
I love watching you play.
I love what you...
That's the most important thing you should say to them. I love watching you play.
Yeah, because that's all they care about. So I feel like it's the same with tennis. And tennis is such a mental sport. Like,
You're saying that to the parent?
Parents ask sometimes what should be my feedback. Well, I don't know what to say sometimes.
Oh, you said that to them.
Especially if you're not somebody who's played that sport when you were younger, which the vast majority of parents haven't played the sport that their child plays. Some do. They ask what to say, and I say the only thing you need to say, give your best, obviously, but I love watching you play.
That's great. I'm going to steal that from that's
my coaching is. Steal it, add it to you. Take it.
Yeah, because I feel like tennis is such like a mental sport, like I was saying, and I feel like the kids are probably saying they look straight at the parent before they look at the coach. And it's hard to, sometimes I watch the parents and their reactions, because it's like, your kid's done great overall, but your reaction is now going to make them sit in the car and cry. And then you're going to complain to me because I'm the coach, and that's just the way about it. So I guess it is the same in tennis. So how would you kind of like coach your parents? Like we've trying to be. Do
coaches workshops? I used to do parents workshop, but made by the coaches, and you do it once a quarter, right? And you talk about, hey, these are the tournaments that are coming up. This is what we're focusing on. This is what we're looking forward to. Right. This is what we're adding, and this is what we're doing differently as we open up, for fitness into the indoor or the outdoor season, right. And making sure that also parents look at the end of the day they're supporting your business, right, and they should also have a voice, and it's very important to remember that they do have good ideas and great ideas.
Yeah. For sure.
But it's also on us as operators to go and set those boundaries while still making it accessible for them to be able to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, we do our Zoom calls at start of travel season, don't we? And kind of like transitions, especially with the girls, like we're trying to push like the mantra or like vision of like, because it's the first ever travel season for girls technically, and like the parents are new to it, I'm new to PSA, blah 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 blah, so we're trying to just like sell them into it because they want it to be immediate success, immediate wins, immediate this. So we try to have those Zoom
Welcome
calls,
to the DMV.
like the boys. I know, thanks. It's been great. But no, that's great. That's good. Parent workshop. Do you think it's beneficial to have like the parents maybe be involved in practice at some point? Because I know we have like at the end of the season we have.
What age?
I mean, I have what do I have? U9s. But I'm saying for more of like the advanced. Because for rec we have obviously the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying like parent workshops are great, but do you think maybe having them come on to the court, be involved in the practice so they can see your side as well as a coach?
I like to separate church and state. I think
well,
like
not all the time, but
I think at the youth, very, very young, like pee-wee level, like, you know, like you got kids wearing their left shoe on their right foot, like that, like you need parents for.
Yeah.
It happens, right?
I mean, not every practice, but maybe just to kind of see an insight, because we're trying to see an insight into a parent's viewpoint. Maybe one practice, be like, come meet me for a day.
That is a great idea. I think we're one day where parents, I think like, you know, parents run the practice.
Yeah.
Coaches don't do anything.
Just involved. See the difference.
That'd be a comedy show.
Might come up.
I think that would be great content. I mean,
we're all about content.
We are all about content. It's great.
So,
if there's a couple things in tennis, not just in the DMV, tennis in general, youth tennis, what would you change about it? What are your top things that you would change in youth tennis, or what are some of your bugs with youth tennis in general?
Your pet peeves.
I think the lack of importance in tennis for the first coach, what it means to be the first coach, is a huge issue why youth tennis numbers have gone down over the last couple of years. I think coaches try to go and coach the way that they were coached to every single little kid. I think tennis is such a technical, you know, it's a tough sport. You go out there every single time and you're going to miss. Trust me, as somebody who goes out there every single time and misses. It's tough for a kid because, you know, you even from what you're looking at, right? You're looking at the next court next to you. You've got two guys who are just trading, ripping balls, and then you're here playing with red balls. And you're 6 years old, and your two friends are in line, and they're hitting the ball really well, and you're missing every single time. Kids don't enjoy that.
Right.
And kids are very, very, very smart. And so making it fun for kids at that level and focusing on making tennis fun and something that is social at a very beginner level is so important. The importance of the first coach. They have to be excited about going to see Coach Ricky and Coach Lee just as much as they are about hitting tennis balls.
Yeah.
And that's because, again, it's an individual sport, but how do you change that? You go and try to make it fun. And, you know, there's different ways of doing that. From a competition standpoint, I don't really particularly like the red, orange, yellow ball, that the way that the governing body of tennis is kind of forcing you to do that. I think that some kids are advanced, and to go and make them play certain tournaments, you know, there are ways to go and move them forward, but I don't like the system that they've developed for that particularly.
For you and your work with the East Potomac Tennis Center now, what are some things that you're going to kind of implement to make tennis more accessible, maybe to have some of these things change and to reinvigorate, I guess, like the younger kids and to have a larger portion of kids wanting to come into tennis at that young age?
I think tennis is extremely tough to find accessibility for in this area.
Yeah.
You know, you have 4 of the 5 richest counties touching each other. Loudoun, Arlington, Fairfax, Montgomery. And if you want to play tennis somewhere, yeah, you can go to your local park, but if you want to get tennis instruction, you have to either belong to a country club that has a $40,000 initiation fee or go to a health club where they're charging you $250 just to join. Then you have to pay for equipment. Then you got to pay for lessons. Then you got to pay for racket. It's the list goes on and on. My goal is to show that you can make money in the tennis industry while still being accessible and open to the public. There are models to where you could do both, right? But that is what I want to do. I want to make sure that this stays accessible to as many people. Now, from a beginner tennis, this does not go just for youth development. This goes into adults as well. I focus much more about how people learn and how they think about things. And for instance, I look at autistic kids. Autistic kids learn better from looking at their peers and looking to their left and right as opposed from delegation. And some kids, it takes them a little bit longer to go and get things. Adults, sometimes they're a little bit more stubborn. They're stuck in their ways. They just want to go out there and they hit balls. But people get discouraged because they look around and it's like, everyone's better than them.
Yeah.
So I'm very big on what you're seeing. So when we're doing beginner tennis, we're doing beginner tennis at every single court that's around you, or at least the courts that are next to you. So if you see someone, that's the closest that I can bring tennis from an instruction level to create a team environment, right? Like we might all be training and might be working at the beginner level, but we're all in this together. And that's how you also build a community within whatever you're trying to accomplish in whatever sport. And I'm very big, and I have a whole program built around what beginner tennis actually means and what it should look like.
Do you see pickleball and padel as a tennis purist? Do you see them as like threats, or do you see them as like adding to the racket sport world and being able to just get people in the door to playing racket sports and maybe a segue to tennis?
Competition.
We're doing all three. Let's get the record straight. Very big on padel. I think padel is exciting. Pickleball. I mean, the thing about pickleball is the barrier of entry is so low.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything. You could go outside on concrete, put up a net, and just go play pickleball. But it's ping pong on steroids. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, what it's
Ping pong on steroids.
no, it is. But what it's done is it's created people to go outside and be active. I mean, pickleball was originally created to get older people moving and senior
Do you think it could
homes.
be kind of like a pathway to tennis? Like, well, I like pickleball as kind of like the begin. Like, someone like me could play it,
People are
not have anything to do with that sport, racket sports, anything like that. But then it's like you get so good at pickleball, like, could I progress to tennis? Could it be like a little kind of like gateway to tennis?
I mean, think about this from a hand-eye coordination, motor skills. I mean, that in itself, like that could be really, really great in terms of what it teaches you. But I think looking at it from an operator standpoint to be saying, oh, this is a threat, and there are a lot of people that feel that way, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But you will get left behind in the racket sports industry if you do not adapt and try to stay that you're only going to do tennis, right?
Yeah.
But also focusing on, okay, if this is actually happening, how can I adapt and use this as a vehicle to go and support the other things that we're doing?
Yeah.
And
Hand in hand.
there is an issue with how pickleball community and tennis community are going to coexist. I mean, like if you look at it even from a accessibility standpoint, I mean, there's a lot of pickleball facilities that are popping up, but what's going to happen is you're going to start to see these public parks, when they're going to resurface their courts, a lot of them are going to be some pickleball and some are going to be tennis. So those pickleball facilities that say we're only doing pickleball are going to lose because you can just go outside and go play with 3 friends or 2 friends. But then the tennis people are also going to lose because now you don't have access to tennis courts, as many tennis courts.
In Loudoun County, Hanson Park they're mixed. There's tennis courts, obviously, but within those tennis courts, it's the pickleball. But every single evening, it is crammed with people playing pickleball. Now.
It is.
It's crazy, and you can get that many. You can get the 4 on half of a tennis court, 4 on another half of a tennis court. So it's, I guess, for those groups that you want to monetize and get more bodies on the court, that's a way to do it, I guess.
If you listen to some of these Fairfax County or Loudoun County hearings about what they're doing at the parks and what they're spending their budget on and how many people are coming out just in the pickleball community just to go get their recreation centers or whatever change to pickleball, it's daunting. It really is. But I think there's an ability to coexist, and that's what we plan to do. I mean, I think padel is going to be the future. I think it's super exciting. And I think what we're focused on is a rush to be right as opposed to a rush to be first. If that makes sense.
No, it does. So for you guys, I guess, when is ground going to be broken? When are things going to be set in motion for the new plans? We've won the lease, and our timeline, if everything goes smoothly, our entire build out, it's essentially going to be a blank canvas. It will be open hopefully by 2027, at the beginning of the new year. That's what we're shooting for. Obviously, construction, the world's changing every single day. The cost of build, steel, everything, I mean, it's quickly changing. So, and also we have to get approvals, and there's various things that go into it. But in terms of what we're shooting for, yeah, that's what it is. It'll be completely brand new, state-of-the-art, little restaurant and bar. If you want to go and get some food, you're invited to, Lee.
Thanks! Practice my tennis skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're going to be a pickleball girl apparently now.
I've got to start somewhere.
Any final thoughts? Anything to kind of wrap us up in tennis in general or East Potomac specific?
I'd really like to see tennis courts in Washington, D.C. be updated. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see the infrastructure. And this goes to no blame to anyone, but I think that the lack of courts that are operating well or being built correctly, or just frankly been resurfaced, can be changed. You go to Arlington, they're beautiful. You go to Fairfax County, they're beautiful. You go to Montgomery County. And I get everything is changing in the city. That's me personally. I think the city deserves it. I think the tennis community deserves it. I hear them. I get calls about it every single day. But that is something that I'd really like to do. And then within operators, I think and this goes across all sports, I think people, whether it's PSA or whatever another club is, I think for people to find ways to collaborate as opposed to looking at each other as competition needs to change across the board. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely, and you're seeing it like you've some of these clubs, or you've got some of these different organizations that are keeping everything in house, when really like there's strength in numbers. And I think just finding ways and also just picking each other's brains. And I was hypocritical of that for a few years. I looked at everyone as competition, but I just as you get older and you just realize there's a lot of ways that we can do things. So yeah, that's basically it.
Beautiful.
Great.
Anything from you?
Who's your favorite tennis player and
Great
why?
question.
Roger. That's a no-brainer. Roger that.
So
Big
good.
Roger.
Current favorite tennis player? I think it's got to be our boy Francis Tiafoe.
Big Francis. What a
Shout
legend.
out to Francis.
Legend.
Francis.
What a guy.
Francis is gonna win. Francis is gonna win a Grand Slam in the next 18 months.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Let's go.
Tennis man knows all.
Oh, we appreciate you having you on, dude. Wish you all the best with the build out. PSA get free memberships to East Potomac. Lifetime memberships.
Sponsorship board on
As soon as I get my sponsorship check from PSA and a new quarter zip,
we'll give you a t-shirt.
We'll give you naming rights for the facility. We'll get it in the
Easy.
budget. We'll get it in the budget.
Love it. Well, appreciate it, dude. We'll see you guys next time on the PSA Playbook. Thank you very much. Later.